Testing. Assalamu alaikum. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. Yeah. What does that mean? Hope everybody's having a good day. So, inshallah, I'll be your moderator for today. I'll be talking. We're basically going to be talking about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about startups. We're going to talk about many other things. But before that, I would like everyone to go online and check out the Slido event. And the Slido event basically is inserting the questions on entrepreneurship, okay? And while they are talking and introducing themselves as well, all right? So, so let's begin, inshallah. Yes, so slido.com. So the code is GIEEC 2017, and any questions you have on entrepreneurship or maybe any other thing on businesses, financial listing. So I would like to make Abdul Muhaymin introduce himself, the great, and yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. So I was doing MC, now I'm going to be a panelist together with my brother all the way from the UK, Shakib, who's an amazing entrepreneur. And the moderator is Mustafa, who's a great example for students, some students I know here, who represents you guys. And yeah, so before I begin, I'd like to thank a very sincere, sincere people to my heart who supported me, it was very difficult for them to come to this event today. So basically, I'd like to give a round of applause to my father sitting here and my mom there. I think it's important to appreciate our parents, and throughout our journey from the day we were born and then until the day, hopefully, we're all gonna die. and it was hard for my mom to come. But she's an old lady, but she came to really support me. She couldn't make it in Dubai, but alhamdulillah, she made it here. Without them, I wouldn't be who I am today. So, thank you. Jazakallah khairan. So my name is Abdul Muhaymin Mansi. I'm 31 years old. I was born in Saudi Arabia, grew up in Egypt. I was born in Saudi Arabia, grew up in Saudi Arabia until 7 years old, moved to Egypt, and then went to Dubai to pursue my career when I dropped out of university. I always had a problem with university, guys, to be honest with you, and I just left university at the age of 20 years and a half, and I went to Dubai to pursue my career. It was very interesting, and I just started, in July 2007, I had to just focus on my career. It was my everything. Education for me was really something that, no priority. My priority was to really start building my own career, and I just relying on myself and being responsible. Because the load on my parents was too much. We are 7, 5 boys and 5 guys and 2 girls. So I just wanted to really, take responsibility in myself. And I just went to Dubai. I had sacrificed many things, didn't see my parents for 6 years, and my family, my brothers, my sisters. Didn't see my home country, by the way, until today for 10 years, just for your information. And, I keep hustling until I do what I want. And with the tawfiq of Allah and my parents, alhamdulillah, I'm here in front of you today.
That deserves a round of applause. All right. Before we move on to Brother Shakib, the first time I met Brother Shakib, I was intrigued. I was surprised, basically, and the reason because was he's a very, very, very good listener. Me as a communication student, he's a textbook-like individual. The way how he talks is very empathetic. So he's a very emotional, intelligent person, subhanAllah. And we ate Nando's together. All right, so Brother Shakib, would you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself and your story?
I think that was my favorite Nando's meal that I've had. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me just start by congratulating the organizers for arranging this session. I think they've done an incredible job, and they are an incredible team that I've had the pleasure of meeting. So my story is quite simple. When I left uni, my first job was in a multi-billion-dollar company. My second job was in a multi-billion-dollar company. My third job was in another multi-billion-dollar company. So I had enough of working in big multi-billion-dollar companies, and I wanted to create something from ground up and just roll up my sleeves and do something that actually had a real social impact on the ground. So that was my real motivation and passion for getting into entrepreneurship. And I'm sure you've all heard today, with setting up your own company, especially when you're used to a monthly paycheck and you're used to having that certainty, there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of ups and downs. And I think the reason why I am here today is because of the people that were around me and the level of support network that I had to rely on. So whether it is my family, my siblings, my parents, or whether it is my professional network, my former colleagues, it's that network that you, as a young entrepreneur, is absolutely fundamental to have that around you to support you through your ups and downs. So I look forward to talking a bit more about that.
Inshallah, we'll go in depth, inshallah. So let's get to it. Let's get to the questions. But before that, let's start on how this would cover, where we would cover in this. A person really inspires me. I think anyone here knows Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk really inspires me from his work because he documents all his work, and I really see it in action with these two individuals, even for the small time being with you, Brother Shakib. So he talks a lot about being a student and an executioner at the same time, making sure that he's still learning, and at the same time, he's executing on his actions and making decisions, not waiting. Speaking about that, as a student, Abdul Muhaymin, tell me more about your student journey, or maybe how did you become an executioner and building this great event, something like this kind of great event?
First of all, I don't want to take credit myself. My co-founder is sitting right there, and she's the backbone of the business, guys. So
give a round of applause
to her. Hodan Ibrahim. As a student, to be honest with you, I was not a good student. I used to fail, and it was a problem, of course, with my parents. But I just realized by age that, schools, unfortunately, had schools or education system, and I'm not talking about knowledge. Knowledge, of course, is a weapon, but the education system itself was narrowing down my horizons or my ideas or my creativity. And I used to really be, and I think I'm gifted, alhamdulillah, with creativity. And that's the problem I had with school. It just used to really, school, unfortunately, does not give you any room to expand your horizons. The moment you start, being creative, you get cross in your examination results. And that was my problem with schools, and that's why I think I used to fail, and I ended up leaving. And I think right now, at the age of 31 years old, I just realized that actually, I was not stupid. I was just creative. And that was my problem with education.
MashaAllah. I think that deserves a round of applause. So on the other hand, let's listen to the educator. SubhanAllah, he has a master in business
That's
studies.
a good balance, by the way.
Yeah. So, Brother Shakib, what's your angle on being a student? What's your angle on being a student and, something around that scope?
I think one of the challenges that you do face, as Brother Mansi mentioned, is as a student, you're always finding it challenging expressing yourself. You're working in an environment which is quite institutionalized, and you have a lot of blocks and a lot of silos that you have to follow. So there's always a challenge expressing yourself. And in the startup world, we all know that it's all about experimentation. You actually, try a little thing here, try something else if that doesn't work. And to do that, you need a level of freedom. So I think whether it's academia or whether it is industry, corporate, it's very challenging to have that level of freedom in large organizations. So this is one of the beauties of it's really quite inspiring when you're working in a young company that really, doesn't have those limits. You can define your product based on your market's requirements, based around the needs of your customers. And it's quite liberating when you have that sort of control.
I would actually agree with him. One point that a lot of people think that big companies, you learn when you join big companies, but actually, as Giacomo said, when you're in a big company, you're a small part of a big machine. Whatever impact you do, it does not really, you don't see the impact. And I talk from my experience. Yeah, I used to work with big international hotels like Hilton Worldwide. My recent job was, the Dubai government at the Dubai World Trade Center. So it was hard for me to really make any impact or whatsoever, So, you realize that when you join a startup or a small company, whatever impact you do, it actually really makes so much, it makes noise. And that's how you grow, and that's how you learn how to, be multitasking and, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, I have an interesting question. I think it's voted one of the top questions. And interestingly, people really want to see the dark side of being an entrepreneur. People want to see how when you are, you fall off the horse, like stated over here, what actually gets you guys up? Because I think a lot of failures. So what do you think? What do you think about that?
So I think every entrepreneur needs at least two things. One is a real sense of injustice. Whether that is on a ground level, you might see one product and you think, there's a bit of a flaw, there's a better way of doing this. Or whether it is you just look at globally and what's happening and you think, there's a better way for this. You need that sense of injustice. And I think when you have your real tough moments and you have your challenges, it's that sense of injustice that really picks you up. It gets you off the ground. You roll your sleeves back up and you get on with it again. So that is for me the kind of fundamental thing that every entrepreneur needs. The other one is being resourceful. We all know starting a startup is you have a number of limits. Your hands are tied behind your back, and you are facing a lot of constraints. So you need to maximize whatever you do have, whether it's your network, your contacts, whether it is $200 or $300 in the bank account. You really need to maximize that. And I think we're going to talk about this later, but I think that is a real blessing in disguise. When you have those constraints, that's when you start thinking, what can I do here that really gets the most out of whatever I do have, whatever people I know, whatever resources I have, how can I really maximize and get the most out of those?
Thank you. Mensi?
I was saying this earlier, but many people think entrepreneurship is something easy and is not. My proof is that I slept since yesterday 3 hours, okay? And
that's a fact.
And it's really hard because if you're not ready mentally, psychologically, physically, if you're not ready, you're going to fail. And a lot of people think that, having the fund is what makes your business actually ongoing or successful. But actually, you don't realize that actually, number one, having the attitude, the mindset, and the vision is what takes you to actually funding. And if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't invest in yourself, if you don't have the right support, if you don't have the right tools, you're not going to go anywhere. So yeah, as an entrepreneur, I would say attitude, intention is everything.
Okay, speaking about having the clear vision on how, like having an attitude with a vision, how do you start, some entrepreneurship project if you're not very having like the mindset or maybe the correct vision, but it's blurrish. So how do you start an entrepreneurship project? I don't know how you want to take this, but you could take it whatever you want.
What was exactly the question?
So, okay, it says here, what I'm saying is basically you have an idea. How do you execute on that idea? Basically. So, Shakib.
Can I just ask quickly, how many entrepreneurs do we have in this room?
Wow.
MashaAllah.
Wow.
Very good proportion. And how many wannabe entrepreneurs? How many people want to get into business? So we've got 100%, I think.
Yeah, more.
Yeah. I think that, so you have an idea, how do you get started? Whether you're a student, you're working for a company, my number one piece of advice would be that you carry on doing that and get your idea set up on the side. So a lot of people, they think, you know what, the temptation is that you jump right into the deep end and you just get going. But, like we just mentioned, there's going to be a lot of challenges and you're going to be learning. And startups is all about experimentation. So what better place to experiment while you're still either a student or you're still working for another organization on the side. You experiment, you learn about your idea. And I think that is, I would say, the best way to get the idea started rather than going in straight away. And a lot of ideas will develop over a period of time. Once you have a bit of momentum behind the idea, you're seeing a bit of traction, and you can get support from your network, that's the time when you can start exploring whether, I should go full-time or I continue to do it on the side.
Okay.
That's interesting because I would agree with you actually. Many people just decide and just go for it. And I would personally tell you my personal experience when I started the Mangoes, and I was working, and I couldn't really leave. But I would say successful ideas and any successful business loves preparation. You have to prepare yourself. You really have to prepare yourself. I was preparing myself mentally. Like mentally, I was frustrated that I just couldn't take it anymore to work for someone, to be honest with you. And I was making a lot of money for the company or the entity I was working for. And I just realized, you know what? If I make this money for my employer, why can't I make it for myself? So I just, I was really thinking how the transition, how can I make it really smooth? So I started dedicating, I was really dedicating, as Shakib said, I was dedicating time out of my working hours. I used to finish 5, 6 p.m. And I used to, my wife would witness this, 6 p.m. until 12, 1 a.m. I would just prepare, keep preparing, study. You have to be on top of your game, whatever you want to do. And then it came to a point I said, you know what, this is it. This is it. And when I, before taking this decision, I always pray istikhara. So I prayed istikhara and I said, Bismillah. And subhanAllah, after 4 or 5 days, my co-founder was sent to me from Canada. It's about intention, as Hassan said. So yeah.
SubhanAllah. I think that deserves a round of applause. All right. All right. Speaking about planning, you talk about having a proper plan. That actually develops a business and etc. Money-wise, how do you, as a student, my money is, it does not work properly with me. I'm funded from my parents and I really want to start a business. As a worker also, I have my own money, but I'm not sure where to put my money. And I want to start a business, or I have a business, and how do I manage my money? So how do you manage your money if you want to start something? And yes, is there any systematic step? So Brother Shakib, would you start with it?
So out of all of these entrepreneurs and budding entrepreneurs that we have, I guess, a lot of you are thinking, how do I manage my resources? How do I manage my budget? And a lot of people would be thinking, how can I get the investors on board at an early stage and get this idea off the ground? For me, the most important thing is that you take a step back and you ask yourself, why do I want to do this project, this initiative? What is the purpose of this? Is it something that I want to do to then in a few years do an IPO and become a multi-billion-dollar company? Or is it something that there's a deeper social purpose behind this? I want to change the way people do things. I want to have a positive impact on society. I think that question at the outset is very important, and it will determine what next steps you take. Personally, I think when you set up a company, it's about creating impact and not money. Money is something that is a side product. If you have the most impact, money will take care of itself. So when you are setting up your business, the idea is that how can you create your product, and this comes back to the first point I mentioned, which is in the most resourceful way that you can possibly do. And sometimes, to be honest with you, I think this obsession with raising money at the outset, I think it's quite a dangerous thing for a young company. What are you going to do if you raise 2 million? What are you going to do if you raise 5 million, 10 million? You're going to have the time clock ticking down on you. You're going to have these external group of investors that are going to be, demanding certain, returns or growth. Now, at a certain stage of a company, provided those investors, their interest is in line with the company's goals, that might be a good thing. But it's a young company when you're experimenting and you're taking steps back, forth, right, left, when you're going in different directions based on the results of your experiments, that can be quite a dangerous thing for a company as it's growing.
But sometimes, like, they might reach like some stages where you experiment too much, or maybe you experiment too little. How do you know, like, this is the right experiment? How do you know? Is like in a business?
So we're considering a product here, and if you have say a product that you're working on right now and you have version 1.0, that is your minimum viable product. That is a product that you know that you can get it in front of your customers, and you can start getting some sort of feedback. Whether it's your customers or your friends or whoever it is, you can get some sort of feedback. And then you learn from that feedback. Then you have version 1.1, 1.2, and slowly you improve on that. But how do you do that? You actually do that by actually experimenting and taking that feedback on board and applying it to your product. Now imagine if we did the same thing to the companies that we create. We had this iterative process where our customers are our employees. So when we're developing our company, we're developing it based on the needs of our employees. So of course, that feedback loop is very important. I would say that you would rather have more experimentation than less. And yes, there will be times when you tinker rather than adding something that's substantial. There will be times you do that. But as long as you're willing to learn from your customers, you're willing to tailor your product around the needs of the market, I think that's a good thing. And you have visualized where you want to go. So this is your end goal here. You're right now over here. This is where you want to get to. So as long as you're heading towards that goal, and if you're experimenting, I think that's a positive direction.
MashaAllah. So Mensi, about money, what do you think about money?
Money's great.
Oh, definitely. When it's too little, I don't think it's.
So
no.
money, when money is too little, it's really bad. When it's too much, it's very bad. And I think if you guys watch Jack Ma, it happened that few weeks ago. He was in Malaysia, and we had like 45 minutes. We were listening to this guy for 45 minutes, and he was really inspiring because he said, too much money, when we had too much money, Alibaba was failing. And, and we were a bit, we were a bit lazy because we thought we made it. But when we ran out of money, it is when Alibaba became Alibaba. So, I think any great success or great achievement comes from deep struggle, So if you're struggling too much, for a fact you're going to do something to solve the issue. And I think we say necessity is the mother of invention. If you know that there is importance for something and there is so much need for it, you are going to do anything possible, whatever it takes to really overcome that. And that's how you really get yourself going. But I would say little money is a problem. Too much money is also a problem. Middle is excellent.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. So moving on, let's talk about time. Time from making transitions, time from making transitions from business to business, or from student life to entrepreneur life, or maybe balancing between both, or maybe the work and entrepreneurship life balance. How do you guys see it, and would you talk more on it, Brother Shaky?
Yeah, I mean, I go through this right now, and it's just purely work. And recently I just really started, realizing that work will never finish, but family and your kids, they will be growing right in front of you. And you realize that when you're 40 years old, your son is 10, 15 years old, and you haven't had a chance to really enjoy being a proper father, or taking him out and this and that. So what I do right now, alhamdulillah, I have 3 kids, and what I do is basically trying to compromise. So sometimes if I know that I'm not going to see my son for 1 full day, I just take him out with me. Since yesterday, for example, I didn't see my kids, and I had to make sure that my family comes, and my son is right here, sitting here, is 4 years old. And that's how I feel, and I try to make my kids and my family share the journey with me. And I think it's important to have the support of people around you, because if you don't, you're going to fall.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. So, Brother Shakib?
I remember when I was getting into business, there were a couple of things that I always used to hear a lot of other entrepreneurs talk about, and that was number of hours they worked, which was, ranged from 50 hours to 60, 70 hours a week, some crazy hours. And the other thing that I heard was the lack of sleep, as you were saying, Brother Mansi, lack of sleep, 2 hours, 3 hours a night, and that was a normal thing. Now, as we started, and it was very similar for myself, when we were getting things going, lack of sleep, number of hours, balancing the kind of workloads, the time away from the family, the kids. But I've realized one thing, which is that, you can actually get most of the things done that you want to get done within a typical 40-hour week. And those people that say, I work, I sleep 4 hours or 3 hours. Well, if you sleep 4 or 3 hours and the rest of the time you're not being productive, you're not getting anything done, then what's the point of you sleeping 4 or 3 hours? You might as well get a proper good night's sleep and then be productive for the rest of the time. And there's some basic things, tools that you can leverage just to really get the most out of your typical day. When I used to work in the large companies, in the banks, typically in a week I would be spending at least 5 hours a week in meetings, possibly 10 hours, depending on how,
Brutal it is.
yeah, congested the week was. So up to 10 hours you've just, have taken by just meetings. And a lot of the times you wouldn't really get any, substantial thing done in a lot of these meetings. The other thing is, imagine all of the time that is taken up by, if you're in an office environment, by distractions. So you're sitting at your desk and you want to concentrate, you want to get your work done so you can move on to the next target. And before you know it, somebody comes over and, hey, how was your weekend? How was the last meeting? So again, there's a lot of distractions and you get pulled away. there's a lesson that I talk for. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a company. It used to be called 37 Signals, a US-based company. Now it's called Basecamp. And they have this concept of 40-hour week, and they also have this concept of a workplace being like a library. And when I first heard this, and I went, get out of here. Workplace being like a library. I mean, you're supposed to have that atmosphere in work. But the logic was that, if you want to get work done, the most effective place that you get it done is when you're, in an environment where you can just concentrate and you can get your work done. And if you want to talk to your colleague and if you want to have a conversation with them, yes, you have breakout rooms. You can take them to the side and you can have those conversations. But it's not getting in the way of work. And that might sound like a stringent, strict thing to say, but if that gets you closer to that 40-hour or 45-hour week goal and allows you to have more of a social life as well with your family, with your kids, gives you the opportunity to have a work-life balance, that's a very healthy price to pay for that.
I see.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
On time. How do you manage time? Which one? How do you prioritize? How?
I think many of the audience, many people among the audiences would agree that the most productive time comes when you really start your day early, right after Fajr time. And I have noticed this, I don't notice this many times, but for example, I've noticed that when we were emailing Mr. David, he really, right after Fajr, he gets his emails and mashallah is very responsive. And I think that's how you really become very productive with your day. Something that we're really working on, but
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So the last question, and we're done for the day. 5 steps, brief, fast, to start your own business and venture into the entrepreneurial land. Brother Shakib, I know it's spontaneous, but heart attack is my favorite.
Okay, so I don't know if it's going to be 5 steps or 4 or 6. So I would say that the first thing is don't let, and I wish if my current self could go back to my 20-year-old self and just tell him this is what I would advise him of. Don't let anybody else define you. Every single person in this room is unique. You're all different. And sometimes when you work for organizations or institutions, the temptation and the struggle is that you have to fit in. So be yourself, be proud of who you are, and don't be afraid to express yourself. And the other thing is find your network, your mentors, people that you respect, because as long as you are learning every single day from people around you, then you're moving forward. And if you have an idea, then yes, great, work on that idea, but at the same time, take the leadership and the lessons that you can from your mentors, from people around you. The final thing I would say is that when you're going into startup world, before you go in there, and it's a question that I remember asking myself, and I'm quite grateful that I did, is ask yourself, what is the purpose of you doing this? Are you doing it to make $1 million? Are you doing it to have a social impact? Ask yourself, what is the reason? And surround yourself with people who can support your effort and your vision.
Yeah, I would say that most of the audience here, they are young people, and I would say if you're 20, in your 20s, try to get someone who can, who's older than you, and he's going to be your mentor, really guiding you through everything, whether business or personal or whatever. Finding the right mentor. I wish at the 20 or 21 years old I had someone really, guiding me and especially in business when I was alone in UAE. But it was hard because I was just, out and about myself. But having the right mentor, having the long-term vision, like you have to have this long-term vision. And as Shakib said, and I would 100% agree with him, if you think about a business which is just for money, then trust me, it's going to fail. Money will always come, but adding value to people, and I repeat, adding value to people, and solving a problem, it is what is going to get you eventually money, and it's going to what is going to make you rich. And think about that. All the apps we have today, we don't pay for a single app, but they're adding value to us. They're saving our time, they're solving a problem, whether it's transportation, Uber, Grab, Airbnb, all the sharing economy, startups or whatever. But, and that's it. Yeah. So have the attitude, have a strong, network of mentors. Have a long-term vision. Think about changing people's life and having an impact instead of just thinking about money. If you want to think about money, just go open a restaurant or anything else. But really think about really changing people's life and adding creating an impact for those who are around you, even if they are your family or brothers or sisters or your own family. Start with yourself and start with people around you, and you'll see the difference. And last but not least, having great people supporting you, around you. And if you do that, you're on the right path.
All right. Can I have a round of applause for these two amazing speakers? But before, can I have a specific round of applause for Brother Shakib coming all the way from UK? And Abdul Muhammad, you have the mic. This is not prepared. We're going to do something very interesting. Remember Bruce Lee? He talked about compromise like water. Abdul Muhammad, we're going to do it, and I hope that everybody gets entertained by this. But Abdul Muhammad, let's do it together. Bruce Lee said a quote, and we're going to say it. Get ready, guys. Are you guys ready? All right.
No, but it's before you say it, you have to say why.
All right. So it's about water.
When I met Mustafa, I didn't know that he knows the same thing, but I realized he knows it. And I used to use this,
everywhere.
I used to be in martial arts in Egypt, and Bruce Lee used to inspire me a lot. And
all right, so he talks about water, and he gives an interesting arrhythmic. Let me just go on to it. Take the mic. We're saying it together, right?
He basically says,
be formless, shapeless like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can flow, water can crash. Be water, my friends. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and hope you all enjoy this.
This guy's crazy, man.